Hello everybody and welcome back to our assemblies. I do hope you are all doing really well, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon or just before you go home. It is great to be back with you and I hope you're all doing really well as well. Now today we are continuing looking at the Bible and we are going to continue to learn something new from the Bible today. But today we're going to start off and I need you to close your eyes. Okay, everybody's eyes really tightly closed. Your eyes are still open? Okay, I think everyone's got their eyes closed. Good. Now, with our eyes closed, I want you to imagine that you are at home. It is pitch black. It's really late at night. Maybe it's the middle of the night and you've woken up for some reason. You can't see the end of the bed or even where the door is. It is pitch black. There's not even any light in the distance. Just darkness everywhere. Now open up your eyes. When we find ourselves in the dark, I wonder how you feel. 30 seconds on the clock. Tell your neighbour how you feel when you're in the dark. Well done. Some of us really enjoy being in the dark and others find it really scary. And we want to turn the lights on as soon as possible. Personally, I really hate the dark. Whenever I go somewhere new on holiday, to a hotel or even to a friend's house, then I always take a nightlight because I just need to know that if I wake up in the middle of the night, I can see the end of the bed, I know where the bathroom is, and I can get out of the room if I need to. I really don't like the dark. In the dark, it makes doing some things rather difficult, doesn't it? Some things we really do need to be in the light. Okay, let's have another 30 seconds on the clock and tell your neighbour what is the hardest thing to do in the dark. Wow, there really are quite a lot of things that are near impossible to do in the dark, aren't there? I've been thinking of a few things that I really couldn't do in the dark. It would be quite hard to read a book, wouldn't it? Obviously, you could read it on your phone or your Kindle, but I'm talking about an old-fashioned paper book, okay? Very classic book. You couldn't really read that in the dark. It would be quite tricky. Your eyes would get quite sore. I was also thinking it would be quite hard to write a letter or to do your homework in the dark, wouldn't it? Because you wouldn't quite be able to see where the pen was going and where the paper was and where that line was or had you written on that line. It could end up being quite messy. And then I was thinking, well, sometimes I'll probably get quite hungry, so maybe I could eat in the dark. And I can't eat with my eyes closed because I know that this is my hand and this is my mouth. I'm quite good at knowing that. But it depends on what you're eating and it might get quite messy, especially if you have to use a knife and fork. You wouldn't know whether you'd got it on the fork. There is that restaurant in London where you have to eat in total darkness. Total darkness, everything is black, you can't see anything. And I think I would probably make quite a mess. So I'll have to give that one a try. And then I was thinking as well, what happens if I needed to paint a wall? We've been doing quite a lot of painting in our house because we've only been here for a year and we've been painting all of the walls. And I was thinking, well, I wouldn't, if it was total darkness, as we're imagining it to be, I wouldn't know where the paint pot was, I wouldn't know how much paint was on the paintbrush, and I wouldn't know what part of the wall had already done. So I was thinking, well, if I put the paint in the paint pot and bring it out, it would get very messy, there would be paint going everywhere, it probably would end up on the carpet and not on the wall, and maybe you'd have loads of patches all over, so it would just be terrible. It would get very, very messy, and being in the darkness just wouldn't really work. Okay, so it's all very well being in the dark, but how do we get out of the dark? See, you guys are too clever for me. We need light, of course we do. We need to turn the lights on. Now light comes in all different forms, doesn't it? Before electricity, we had candles and fires that people would light so that they would be able to see. And they would have had gas bulbs that maybe you use when you go camping still, so that they could walk around the house safely and you weren't walking around with a naked flame that could have caught fire to something quite easily. Then electricity came into being, and we had electricity in all of our houses, and we had light bulbs in our bedrooms and our bathrooms and our kitchens. And we then got lights in our cars as well. And sometimes we even have lights in our cupboards so we can see right at the back of the cupboards. All of these lights help us to see. They help us to see around our homes, the roads, the cupboards, the gardens. They help us to find the right way to go. In the Bible, we find a verse in the book of Psalms, which is right bang in the middle of the Bible. If you were to get a Bible and open it in the middle, you would most likely end up in the book of Psalms. And in the book of Psalms, there are 150 chapters. Okay, it's a really, really long book. But we are looking at Psalm 119, verse 105. And it says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." And the person who wrote that verse is saying that the Bible is meant to help us in the same way that a lamp would help us, or a light would help us, or a torch would help us if we were in the dark and didn't know which way to go. And that's what we're thinking about today in our assembly, is about a torch or a light showing us which way we should go. Now I've got a story for you, and this is from a guy who was visiting Africa. And so imagine you are in Africa, in the middle of the countryside, late at night, and you have to get from one house to another. You've got to go down a long lane and it is pitch black. I went to Africa a few years ago, and it's not like in England where you've got street lights, okay? In these parts of Africa, there is no light whatsoever. You can see thousands and thousands of stars in the sky, but it's really hard to see where your foot is going to land. On this particular day in our story, it was so dark you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. This guy knew that there were snakes and bugs and animals around, so he had to be really careful where to stand. Your friend has also warned you about the scorpions, little bugs that if they bite you, they could really, really sting. As you prepare to leave the house, you are very, very scared. Your knees are knocking, your teeth are shaking, your body is all clenched up. You start to wonder, how will you find the right path? Will you step on a snake? Will a bug get you? Will you get there safely? How will you be able to get home? You're not going to be able to see. Seeing how scared you are, your friend gives you a torch to help you find your way. And you are so relieved. You switch it on, open the door, and start on your journey home. You make sure that you shine the torch all around you, constantly swaying from one side to the next, to make sure that your path in front is clear. At one point, you see a snake, or you think you do, and you get a little bit closer. Don't worry, it's just a branch. Whew, dearie me. And so you continue on your journey home. Thankfully, you make it all the way home without being hurt or bitten or getting lost, and you are perfectly safe back at home. In that story, the friend was really thoughtful, weren't they, and gave the other person a torch so that they wouldn't be scared on the walk home. Christians believe that God cares about us so much, and so he too has also given us a torch. But it's not a torch with a light bulb. This torch is the Bible, Jesus, the Word of God, where we have been able to know and to learn which path we should walk down, and so that he can guide us down the right path. And God says if we follow his path carefully, just like we would follow that torch path in the dark, we can be certain that God will always be with us and will safely bring us to him one day in heaven. However, just suppose in that story I've just read that your friend had given you a torch and you had set off in the dark, but you didn't switch it on. You decided just to go. That would be a little bit silly, wouldn't it? Knowing that all of those dangerous animals were out there to get you, but you had something that would protect you, but you didn't use it. Of course you wouldn't do that. When you have a torch, you use it. When you need it, you use it. By using that torch, you were able to find the safe path to use. In the same way, we need to use the Bible to find out what God is saying to us, so that we know how to live our lives correctly. Then, just for a moment, suppose that your friend had given you the torch, you had switched it on, and you had found the right path to go down. But you then decided, no, I'm going to go down a different one instead. How silly would that have been? I don't think that would have been particularly sensible. When you find the right path, you should always go down it. Once we know what God is saying to us, we of course should do it. We know of stories in the Bible where people have heard God say, go and do something, and they didn't. I'm sure that you all know the story of Jonah, who was told to go to one place, but he didn't, and he ended up in a whale for 3 whole days because he didn't do what God told him to do. God has given us his word, the Bible, to help us find our way safely through our lives. We use it just like a torch to guide us so that when we listen to him, we do what it says. Sometimes we might hear people call this Bible the story of the good news. That's because as Christians, we believe the Bible really is a story of good news, great news, amazing news. When Jesus came to earth, he died and rose again to save us. And throughout the whole Bible, Jesus shows us the right path to walk down, just like our torches show us the right way to go as well. Let's check out this video and see more about the good news.
God's story, the good news. So part of God's story is about the gospel, or the good news, and it goes like this. In the beginning, God made everything. The sun, the moon, stars, planets, the entire galaxy, and Earth was part of that creation. God made mountains and oceans and forests and deserts and animals that crawled on the ground and flew in the air and swam in the water. Then he made people, Adam and Eve, to live in a garden called Eden, and God called everything he had made good. There was just one rule. Adam and Eve could eat anything they wanted except for the fruit from this one tree. But a snake tricked Adam and Eve into disobeying that one rule. Because of that, sickness, sadness, and all kinds of bad things came into God's perfect creation, all because people made wrong choices. Part of how God punished Adam and Eve was by not allowing them in the perfect garden anymore. And if that were the end of the story, that would be bad news for us. That would mean all the wrong stuff in the world would never be made right. But God still loved people, and he had good news for them. He was going to send a rescuer. So they waited, and waited, and waited. Then one day, the rescuer was born as a baby named Jesus. Christmas is when we celebrate the good news of Jesus being born. But it's not just that he was born, it's what he did later that was the best news of all. He took the punishment for all the wrong choices that anyone has ever made anywhere. See, all of us have continued to make wrong choices, just like Adam and Eve did. And just like Adam and Eve, we deserve to be punished for our wrong choices. But here's the thing, Jesus, the rescuer, never made a single bad choice. Kids, think about a time you made a bad choice. Maybe telling a lie, or taking something that wasn't yours, or hurting another person with something you did or said. Can you believe that whatever that was, Jesus never made a choice like that? And even though he never made a bad choice, he still took the punishment for our wrong choices? And then Jesus did something even more completely unexpected. He came back to life. Really? You can read about it in the Bible, in the stories written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We call those books Gospels, which is just an old fancy word for, you guessed it, the good news of Jesus coming to earth, dying for our wrong choices, and coming back to life. That's what we celebrate on Easter. But not just because coming back to life is totally amazing. By coming back to life, Jesus was showing that God can make anything new. There's nothing God can't do. He's more powerful than any sadness, shame, wrong choice, disease, disaster, and even death. And that's the best, most amazing good news of all. It's so amazing, Jesus' friends told everyone they could find about the good news. And those people told other people. And those people told other people. And on, and that's still happening today. In fact, you just heard the good news, and the Bible says, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. That's another way to say God rescues us. And that rescue includes you, your friends, your family, and anyone else in the whole world. And that's the story of the good news. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version. God made a perfect world. People made mistakes and the world isn't perfect anymore. God promised his family a rescuer. The rescuer's name is Jesus. Jesus died to take a punishment we deserve, but he didn't stay dead. Jesus came back to life because Jesus can make anything new. And that's a part of God's story.
Wow, I really think the Bible really is the great news, the good news, the best news we could ever hear about. Today we've looked at lots of different lights, haven't we? House lights, car lights, garden lights, even cupboard lights, all the different lights that we use each and every day. Lights help us to see in the darkness. They help us to find the right path so we don't get lost or hurt. Jesus is sometimes referred to as the light of the world. In the Bible, Jesus teaches us which way is the right way to go. He shows us the right way to live, to love other people, and the right path to walk down in our lives. Just like our torch does as well. Yet, if we do hear what God's telling us to do, or we decide to just turn our backs to him and not listen to him, then there's going to be consequences for the things that we do as we make those wrong decisions. Just like in that video, Adam and Eve did the wrong thing and then were banished from their garden, so they could never live in the Garden of Eden ever again. God wants us to be on the right path and to know what is right for our lives. And God always wants what's best for us. He knows what is best for us. And so I really hope that all of us will be able to listen out for what is God telling us is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. And let's really focus on staying on that right path so that we don't end up with any bad consequences and we follow that torch really, really well. I hope you've enjoyed your time with me today and have learnt that not only does a torch show us the way to go, but Jesus shows us the best way to go as well. Have a great week in school and I'll see you next time. Bye!